Story 1. Has anyone ever had sleep paralysis before? I tell you, it's one of the strangest, most fascinating, yet horrifying things you could experience. It's the feeling of being unable to move upon awakening. Your senses and awareness are intact, but you feel as though you're in a half-asleep, half-awake state. I'd heard stories of this long before it happened to me. I'd only experienced it once, back when I was in college. I was going through an incredibly tough time in my life. I was insanely stressed during finals week and wasn't getting much sleep. It must have been the night before my last final. I went to bed late because I stayed up all night studying for bio. I don't remember at what point I decided to finally call it. I just remember everything becoming a blur, then blackness. Next thing I remember, I was in my room, in my bed, but with this weird haziness in my awareness, like I was awake but felt weaker. When I tried to move, I couldn't. I could only move my eyes to look around the dark room. At one point, when I was looking to one side of the room, I looked back to the center, and there was this woman standing dead center in the room, facing the bed. She was wearing a black dress and holding a long object. I wanted to call out, "Mom," but my paralysis prevented it. I couldn't say anything. The woman came closer to me until she knelt down and touched my forehead. I could feel it. She got eye to eye with me, and I could see my mother's face. I tried to say, "Mom," again, desperately, but I was stuck in my own body. She stood back up, walked to the doorway, and disappeared into the house. I lay there, unable to move for maybe another 10 to 20 seconds, before my vision suddenly became clearer, and I could think more clearly as well. I was able to sit up. I jumped out of bed, screaming, "Mom," over and over, running through the hallway, yelling her name. Then, a door opened down the hall, and someone came to hug me. But it wasn't my mom, it was my dad, who hugged me and told me he missed her, too. My mom had died 3 weeks before this happened. Story 2. You know what I love about dreams? How vague and bizarre they can be. You feel like you're in this separate world where things make no sense. Now, what about when that uneasiness transcends into the real world? You'll see what I mean. I was in REM sleep, having this bizarre nightmare about being followed by some weird creature in the middle of the woods. The dream became fuzzy, though, and I kind of woke up from it. I say, kind of, because while I was out of the dream and back in my bed, I couldn't move a muscle in my body. I started hearing this faint, weird noise, an indescribable robotic yet alive type of sound. It started light and soft, repeating every 3 seconds. Each time, it seemed slightly louder, like it was getting closer. It got so unbearably loud in my head I just wanted to scream, but I couldn't. My eyes locked onto the closet door, specifically, the crack in the closet door, which I never leave open, ever. In that crack, there was the distorted face of a man looking through, with an unhumanly large, open-mouthed smile. Every time I heard the noise, it seemed like the closet and the face were getting closer until the closet door suddenly slammed shut, and everything went silent. I regained control of my body shortly after that, and the first thing I did, even though I was 24 years old, was run to my parents' room and get my dad to check the closet with me. There was nothing in the closet or anywhere else in the room. My dad seemed pretty confident that I had just experienced sleep paralysis and that he'd experienced it once, too. It didn't make me feel any less disturbed about what I'd just gone through. Story 3. Many years ago, I had a sleep paralysis experience. I knew there was something in my closet, something really evil. But I also knew I was dreaming and should face my fear. I tried not to look directly at the closet door, but every time I moved my eyes, my head would turn away, no matter how hard I tried. I couldn't look directly at it. Then, I woke up in a cold sweat. At first, I felt relieved that it was over. But then I realized it wasn't a dream, and there was really something in the closet. I was lying on my back and couldn't move. I didn't hear it, but I could feel this sickening laughter washing over me in waves from the closet. Suddenly, the thing threw a human head at me, and it landed on my chest, face up. It was a girl I knew from high school. Up to this point, I was terrified but holding it together. Now I lost it completely. I couldn't scream, all I could do was make these grunting, moaning sounds, straining to rock from side to side to get it off me, but I couldn't move. This seemed to last maybe another minute or two, and then I really woke up. It was so traumatic that for weeks afterward, I was afraid every time I woke up, fearing I wasn't actually awake and that something horrible could happen at any second. I never heard of sleep paralysis or night terrors before this happened, so I genuinely thought I was losing my mind. Story 4. I've had sleep paralysis 3 times in my life. The first 2 times, it just consisted of me waking up and not being able to move my body. But the 3rd time was much different. I'd woken up very early, probably between 5 and 6 a.m., when the sun was just starting to come up. There was a faint light in the room. I tried to move, but I had that all too familiar feeling of helplessness. My eyes fixated on the wall, and I heard heavy footsteps coming up the stairs to my bedroom. It was my brother, followed by my sister, dad, and mom. They were all sobbing hysterically, looking at least a foot taller than normal. The 4 of them approached my bed, towering over me, crying. I couldn't move. I wanted to cry for help or yell at them to stop because they were scaring me. Their heights seemed to be reaching the ceiling. Then, just as quickly as they entered, all 4 of them turned and walked back down the stairs. I could move again, so I ran down the stairs to follow them. But they weren't in the hallway. I went to each of their rooms one at a time, and all 4 of them were fast asleep. My heart was racing. The most surreal, unnerving thing had just happened, and I had to lean on the wall to gather my thoughts. Falling back asleep was pointless. I lay awake until sunrise. A few days later, I was hit by a speeding car while crossing the road with friends, breaking 3 bones and fracturing my thigh. I was hospitalized for a week, and at one point, all 4 of my family members stood by my bed, looking down at me while my mom cried. It was almost the same image from my sleep paralysis. I'm not superstitious, but if I were, I'd believe that dream was a prediction. Story 5. One summer night in 2016, I was out late drinking with friends, walking around town and then the neighborhood. One of my friends spotted someone hiding in a bush in front of a house. We all walked closer to see it, barely able to make out the figure. This strange, off-putting sound started coming from the bush, and we all screamed and laughed, running away. We figured whoever was in that bush was just messing with people. I fell asleep easily that night since I was drunk, but next thing I knew, I woke up to pitch black darkness in my room. I couldn't look at the clock or move. I was completely paralyzed. I heard the familiar noise from the bush. Looking toward the foot of my bed, I saw pure nightmare fuel. There was this grotesque, horrific head of a demonic ghost-like figure hovering there. As it got closer, I realized it wasn't floating. It had a body, blending with the darkness. Its mouth hung open, making that familiar noise from the bush. It got inches from my face, then faded away. I could finally scream and move. I sat up in bed, heart racing, and flicked on the lamp. That demonic thing was gone. The experience felt so real. The next day, I told my parents, who believed it was sleep paralysis, though they'd never heard of anyone seeing something like that.